Welcome back to my channel, Rare Coins Shop. If you're excited about finding hidden gems in your pocket change, you're in the right place. First, we're going to uncover some of the most valuable and rare US coins that could be worth a fortune. Let's dive in. We're diving into the world of the 1964 Lincoln cent, one of the most talked about 1-cent coins in US history. Now, we all see pennies every day. They're usually dismissed, dropped on the sidewalk, tossed into tip jars, or forgotten in kitchen drawers. But what if I told you that one of these so-called worthless coins might actually be a hidden gem, one that could change your perception of pocket change forever? The 1964 Lincoln cent is more than just an old penny. It's a reflection of a turning point in American coinage and a potential jackpot for collectors who know what to look for. So buckle up, because we're about to explore what makes this little copper coin so incredibly intriguing, and why it could be worth far more than its face value. Let's start with a bit of historical context. The year 1964 was a significant one for the United States Mint. This was the last year pennies were made with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, before the coin shortage of the mid-1960s and the upcoming coinage changes that would affect dimes, quarters, and half dollars. The demand for coins was so high in 1964 that the Denver Mint had to produce hundreds of millions of 1-cent pieces. And among that massive production came some incredible rarities. The D mint mark below the year tells us that the coin was minted in Denver. Over 3.7 billion of these pennies were produced there. That sounds like a huge number, right? So you might be thinking, how could any of them possibly be rare? Well, here's where things get really interesting. Among those billions, a few coins were struck in exceptional condition, what collectors call mint state. That means they were never used, never touched by the grime of commerce, and they still shine with their original copper brilliance. But even rarer than that are the error coins and die varieties, the kinds of mistakes that occurred during the minting process and slipped through unnoticed by the mint. For example, some 1964 pennies show signs of double dies, especially visible in the date or the word Liberty. These errors happen when the die used to strike the coin hits the blank planchet more than once, creating a slight shadow or doubling of the design. While these are subtle, they are extremely valuable to collectors. Then there are repunched mint marks, where the D was punched more than once in slightly different positions. These varieties are like fingerprints, unique and rare, which makes them highly sought after by specialists and hobbyists alike. And let's not forget about off-center strikes, die cracks, broad strikes, and clipped planchets. Each of these errors makes a coin stand out dramatically from the standard and increases its value tremendously, especially when combined with a high mint state grade. So, how do you know if you've got one of these valuable coins? Start by pulling out any old 1964 pennies you might have in jars, drawers, or inherited coin collections. Hold them under a good light, maybe even use a magnifying glass, and look for signs of doubling or other unusual characteristics. If the coin still has its original luster and looks free from scratches or wear, that's a good sign. But to know for sure, your next step should be professional grading. Services like PCGS or NGC can authenticate the coin's grade and spot any mint errors. Once certified, your coin's true market value becomes much clearer, and trust me, that's when things get exciting. Now, here's what you've been waiting for. A genuine 1964 Lincoln penny with an error, or one that's preserved in pristine mint state condition, especially if it grades MS67 or higher, has been known to reach astonishing figures at auctions and private sales. How much exactly? One of these rare, high-grade 1964 pennies has been valued at as much as $150,000. Yes, you heard that right. A coin worth 1 cent, potentially worth more than a luxury car, more than a year's college tuition, more than some people earn in a whole year. So, next time you come across a 1964 penny, don't toss it aside. Don't overlook it. Take a moment. Take a closer look. You never know, you might just be holding a treasure that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. Second rare coin, we're talking about the 1968 United States 1-cent coin. Now I know what you're thinking, it's just a penny. But let me tell you something. Some of the rarest and most valuable coins in the world have come in the smallest packages. That's right. The coin we're discussing today may look like every other Lincoln cent out there, but under the surface, it hides a world of collector mystery, historical relevance, and potential value that could surprise even the most experienced numismatist. So sit back, relax, and get ready to discover why the 1968 penny might be one of the most important coins you ever examine in your collection. Let's rewind the clock to 1968. America was in the midst of social and political change. It was a year marked by protests, transformation, and shifting cultural tides. But while the world was focused on moon landings and civil rights movements, the U.S. Mint was continuing its mission of producing coins for everyday use. Among these were the Lincoln cents. The familiar face of President Abraham Lincoln still graced the obverse of the coin, just as it had since 1909. Designed by Victor David Brenner, this portrait has become one of the most iconic images in American coinage. But what makes the 1968 penny different? Well, first, it's worth understanding that 1968 was an important transitional year for U.S. coin production. Just a few years earlier, in 1964, the Mint had stopped using silver in dimes and quarters due to rising metal costs. By 1965, the coinage world had shifted, and people began hoarding coins. In the midst of this, 1968 saw some experimentation, adjustments, and reorganization within the Mint's operations, including a big change that would affect how mint marks were used. Here's the twist. From 1965 to 1967, the Mint had removed all mint marks from coins. So in 1968, when mint marks returned, collectors paid close attention. That year, Lincoln cents were produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. If you've got a 1968 penny with no mint mark, it came from Philadelphia. If you have one with a small d under the date, it came from Denver. But not all of these coins are created equal. Let's talk about what makes a 1968 cent truly valuable. It all comes down to three words: condition, rarity, and error. First, condition. As always, uncirculated or mint state coins, especially those that grade MS-65 or higher, are significantly more valuable than worn or circulated examples. If a coin still has its full original red color, no scratches, no signs of wear, and sharp details, it becomes extremely appealing to collectors. Second, rarity. While the Mint produced millions of pennies that year, coins from certain dies, especially early dies in a production run, can be much sharper, clearer, and more sought after. If the coin has strong features, clean fields, and no signs of die fatigue, it's much more likely to be seen as valuable. And third, errors. This is where things get really interesting. Some 1968 pennies have been discovered with incredible mint errors. These include double die obverse, where the date and lettering appear slightly doubled due to a misaligned strike. Others may have off-center strikes, where the coin design is noticeably shifted. Then there are die cracks, die clashes, broad strikes, and strikes on the wrong planchet, all of which can turn an ordinary penny into a highly collectible coin. For example, a 1968 D penny struck on a dime planchet is an incredibly rare error that can fetch thousands on its own. Or imagine finding a double die 1968 penny with a blazing red mint luster. Now you're in truly elite collector territory. But what if you just have a regular-looking 1968 penny? Even then, it's worth checking. Use a magnifier to look closely at the date, the mint mark, the letters, and Lincoln's coat and jawline. Look for signs of doubling, weak strikes, or anything that seems unusual or different. If you think you've found something special, your next step is professional grading. Reputable services like PCGS or NGC will authenticate, grade, and encapsulate your coin. Once it's officially graded and certified, its market value can jump significantly. And when rare varieties go to auction, that's when the excitement really begins. Now here comes the big moment. You've waited patiently, so let's get to the exciting part. If you happen to own a 1968 United States 1-cent coin with the right combination of rarity, error, and top-grade mint state preservation, this little copper coin, this everyday penny, could be worth as much as $130,000. Yes. You heard that correctly. A single penny, worth over 6 figures. Just imagine finding that in an old drawer, or realizing one has been sitting in your collection all this time without you knowing. So don't underestimate the coins in your possession. What might seem like loose change today could become life-changing tomorrow. Always be curious. Always be observant. And always, check your pennies. Third expensive con, we're about to take a deep dive into one of the most curious and talked about coins in modern American numismatics, the 1982 D Lincoln cent. Now I know what you're thinking. A penny from 1982? That's not exactly ancient. And with the letter D under the date, it just means it was minted in Denver. What could possibly make that worth anything? Well, more than you think. Because this coin isn't just another copper piece from the past, it's a piece of monetary history. A coin caught in a transitional period that has left collectors and experts alike searching through jars, drawers, and old rolls for that one rare specimen that could be hiding in plain sight. Let's take a step back for a moment and look at what made 1982 such an unusual year for the humble penny. For decades, the Lincoln cent had been made primarily of 95% copper, with the rest being zinc. But in 1982, something big happened. Due to the rising cost of copper, so high that the metal in the penny was becoming more valuable than the coin's face value, the U.S. Mint decided to change the composition of the penny for the first time in over 20 years. So, during 1982, the Mint started producing pennies made of 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper, with just a thin copper coating on the outside. But here's the twist, they didn't switch all at once. Instead, 1982 was a year of overlap. Some pennies were made from the old heavy copper alloy, and others from the new lighter zinc alloy. And to make things even more complicated, there were 7 different varieties of pennies released that year, some with small dates, some with large dates, some made in copper, some made in zinc, and with different mint marks. Now this is where things get really interesting. The 1982 D small date cent, made of copper, was long believed not to exist. For years, collectors searched and searched, but no one could prove they had found one. It was basically a ghost coin, rumored, hoped for, but unseen, until one day, a copper 1982 D small date penny was discovered. It caused an uproar in the coin community because according to all official records, this coin was never supposed to exist. Yet there it was. So now, the hunt was on. Collectors began digging through their old coin rolls and rechecking their 1982 D pennies. Could they have one of the rarest and most mysterious pennies ever minted? Could you? Let me break it down simply. If you have a 1982 D penny, it could be made from either copper or zinc. The easiest way to tell is to weigh the coin. A copper penny from that year weighs 3.11 grams, while a zinc one weighs 2.5 grams. You'll need a precise scale, one that measures in grams, to figure it out, but wait, it gets better. If you happen to have a 1982 D penny that weighs 3.11 grams and also has a small date design, then stop everything. Because you might be holding one of the most elusive modern coin rarities in the world. Even if your 1982 D cent doesn't have the small date design, don't count it out just yet. High-grade copper or zinc examples, those that are in mint condition, or better yet, certified as MS67 or higher by a professional grading service, can still fetch a premium. And if the coin features any mint errors like double dies, off-center strikes, or repunched mint marks, the value only climbs higher. So what's the next step if you think you found something special? First, protect the coin. Don't clean it. Place it in a coin flip or protective holder. Then, send it to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC for evaluation. These services can authenticate the coin's type, weight, and grade, giving you a much clearer picture of what you might have. And now, for the part you've all been waiting for. If you happen to own a 1982 D small date penny made from copper, in pristine condition, with confirmed authenticity and the right characteristics, it could be worth as much as $90,000. Yes, you heard that right. A single cent. Just one coin. Valued at $90,000. It's a powerful reminder that history, rarity, and condition can transform an everyday object into something of immense worth. So go ahead, check your change, dig through those old piggy banks, and examine your coin collections closely. You never know what hidden treasure might be waiting to change your life. Especially, we're diving deep into a coin that might just be sitting quietly in your collection or even loose in your change, the 1970 Lincoln 1-cent coin. At first glance, a 1970 penny might not seem like much. It's one of the more common years for Lincoln cents, so what could possibly make it special? Well, if you think all pennies from that era are worth just a few cents, think again. There's a fascinating world beneath the surface when it comes to coin collecting, and the 1970 penny is no exception. Let's start by exploring the historical background. The 1970 penny was minted during a time of change in the United States, amidst social and political shifts. But from a numismatic perspective, 1970 is notable because it was part of a series of Lincoln cents produced primarily at the Denver and Philadelphia mints. The Denver mint coins are marked with a D mint mark just below the date, while Philadelphia mint coins have no mint mark. Now, what makes the 1970 penny so interesting are a few key features and varieties that can drastically affect its value. There are common versions that you probably have seen before, but then there are rare variations that collectors seek eagerly. One of the most famous rare varieties is the 1970 small date penny, which is extremely hard to find and commands high prices. But today, our focus is on the 1970 penny in general, especially those minted in Denver, because some of these coins have remarkable traits that can turn a simple penny into a treasure. First, let's talk about condition. Like most coins, a 1970 penny's value depends heavily on its condition. A well-worn penny found on the sidewalk might only be worth a few cents. But if your penny is in uncirculated condition, meaning it hasn't been used as money and shows no signs of wear, its value increases significantly. Add to that the possibility of an error or an unusual die variety, and the value skyrockets even further. One notable error that collectors look out for in the 1970 penny is the double die obverse. This means the coin's front side has a doubling effect on the letters and numbers due to a misalignment during the minting process. These kinds of errors are rare and highly prized. If you spot doubled letters, numbers, or the date itself, you could have a very valuable coin. Another key factor influencing the value is the metal composition. Pennies from this era were made mostly from 95% copper, before the composition changed in later years to mostly zinc with a copper coating. Copper coins generally have more intrinsic value due to the metal itself, especially if preserved well. Now, you might be wondering what a coin like this could realistically be worth in today's market. Well, prices fluctuate based on demand, condition, and rarity, but high-grade 1970 pennies with unique features or mint errors have been known to fetch prices far beyond face value. Imagine discovering that rare 1970 penny with an error or in near-perfect condition. Such coins have been sold at auctions or private sales for tens of thousands of dollars. With the surge in interest in coin collecting and rare errors, the demand keeps growing. To give you an exact number, the 1971 cent coin, especially a high-quality example with recognized errors or varieties, can be worth as much as $60,000. Yes, $60,000 for a penny that might have been sitting unnoticed in a jar for decades. So next time you find a 1970 penny, take a moment to examine it carefully. Use a magnifying glass, check for double dies or mint marks, weigh it if possible, and consider sending it to a professional grading service. You might just have a hidden fortune in your hands. Next coin, we're taking a closer look at a coin that many might think is just an ordinary penny, the United States 1-cent coin from 1984. But trust me, there's more to this humble coin than meets the eye. The 1984 penny is part of the Lincoln cent series, which has been a staple of American currency since 1909. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln penny was originally introduced to honor President Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. The design has changed very little over the decades, but the subtle variations in certain years have created some truly remarkable collector's items. The 1984 penny might seem like just another coin you find in your pocket change, but numismatists, coin collectors, know that even recent pennies can hold extraordinary value under the right circumstances. When we talk about coin value, it all comes down to several key factors: mint marks, condition, rarity, and any unique errors or variations. In 1984, pennies were produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The Denver Mint pennies carry a small D mark below the date, while Philadelphia coins don't have a mint mark at all. The Philadelphia Mint struck millions of pennies that year, making them fairly common. However, some Denver minted pennies from 1984 can be a bit more interesting, especially if they possess specific minting errors. One of the most sought-after features on any coin is what collectors call a double die error. This occurs when the coin's design is stamped twice slightly off register, causing a doubling effect on the date, letters, or other features. While the 1984 penny doesn't have a widely known double die like some other years, subtle variations and rare die cracks have been observed by dedicated collectors, and these coins command attention in the numismatic community. Condition plays a crucial role when determining the value of any coin, and that's no different for the 1984 penny. Coins that have been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, meaning they've never been used in everyday transactions and show no wear, are naturally more valuable. If you happen to have a 1984 penny that looks fresh off the mint press, sharp details with a deep copper sheen, you're already ahead of the game. But what really pushes a 1984 penny into the realm of significant worth is if it's one of the rarer mint errors or variations, combined with exceptional condition. For instance, coins with off-center strikes, weak strikes, or die cracks can attract collectors who are willing to pay a premium. Beyond just the collectible value, the intrinsic metal value is worth noting. The 1984 penny was still made primarily of 95% copper. Copper content adds a layer of interest to collectors and metal enthusiasts alike, as the metal itself has value beyond the face of the coin. However, it's important to remember that the worth based solely on metal content is usually far less than the value from rarity and condition. Now, how much could a 1984 penny like this be worth in today's market? Common circulated pennies from 1984 might only be worth their face value or slightly more. But if you're holding one with an unusual mint error or in mint condition uncirculated form, the numbers quickly rise. In fact, some exceptional specimens of the 1984 penny, especially those with rare mint errors, flawless condition, or unique characteristics, have been known to fetch prices as high as $70,000. $70,000 for a penny that many people overlook daily. So if you find yourself staring at a 1984 penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a moment to examine it closely, use a magnifying glass if you have one, and look for anything unusual, like doubling, off-center strikes, or unusual markings. It might just be the key to unlocking a hidden treasure. Last unique coin. We're diving deep into a coin that might look familiar but holds a surprising story, the United States 1-cent coin from 1988. At first glance, the 1988 penny might seem like any ordinary coin you find in your pocket or at the store. But as many seasoned collectors know, even coins from relatively recent years can carry incredible value, especially when rare details or unique conditions come into play. The 1988 penny belongs to the iconic Lincoln cent series, a coin that has been a fixture of American currency for over a century. This series features the beloved profile of Abraham Lincoln, an enduring symbol of American history, designed by Victor David Brenner. While the overall design hasn't changed much since its introduction in 1909, subtle variations from year to year can turn a common penny into a collector's prize. For the 1988 cent, coins were minted primarily at two locations, Philadelphia, without a mint mark, and Denver, marked with a small d below the date. This distinction is important because, often, the mint location affects the rarity and value of a coin. The Philadelphia Mint produced a larger number of pennies in 1988, so those tend to be more common. However, the Denver Mint pennies have their own appeal among collectors, especially when found in pristine condition or with certain errors. Now, what really makes the 1988 penny stand out to collectors are the rare minting errors and condition quality. One such error is the double die variety, where the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. Although the 1988 penny is not famous for a major double die error like some other years, subtle die variations and minor anomalies have been spotted and highly prized. Condition is a key factor in any coin's value. If a 1988 penny shows no signs of wear, retaining its original luster, sharp details, and a clean strike, it becomes much more desirable to collectors. Coins graded at the highest levels by professional services can command a premium because of their scarcity in such condition. Most coins in circulation show wear from handling, so finding an uncirculated or proof-quality 1988 penny is a treasure in itself. Another important aspect that adds to the coin's appeal is the metal composition. Unlike pennies made before 1982, which were mostly copper, the 1988 penny is primarily zinc with a thin copper coating. While this means its metal value is less than earlier copper pennies, the true worth comes from rarity and collector interest, not the metal content. So, what kind of value are we talking about? Common 1988 pennies typically hold face value or just a bit more for collectors. But when you find one with an error, such as a die crack or doubling, or one that is uncirculated with a high grade, the price can skyrocket. In fact, some exceptional specimens of the 1988 1-cent coin have been known to fetch as much as $50,000. $50,000 for a coin many people would overlook as just spare change. That's the magic of coin collecting, the history, rarity, and tiny imperfections that can turn an everyday object into a valuable keepsake. So next time you come across a 1988 penny, take a closer look. It might just be worth a small fortune. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed learning about the fascinating value behind this coin, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on our deep dives into the hidden treasures of coin collecting. Keep your eyes peeled, you never know what valuable coin is waiting to be discovered.